Folks, welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny FIORICA. Sitting alongside me tonight, my trusted co-host, David Simpson, who's a 20-year veteran, Rochester Police Department, retired, legendary street cop, undercover cop, SWAT cop, homicide detective. David Simpson, welcome to the pod.
Happy to be here. I think it's going to be a great show today. Fantastic. There's an empty mic here, but I think we're going to do just fine.
Are you happy that you're flying solo on that side of the room?
I can't say I'm happy, Johnny. I'm just happy to be here, but I think it's going to be a very focused podcast today.
Well, you know, that sounded like a political statement, I got to be honest with you.
Oh,
Political. It sounded political, but it's okay because our guest tonight, he's running for New York's 25th Congressional District against incumbent Democrat Joe Morale. Gregg Sadwick, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. David, thank you for having me here today.
our pleasure.
Greg, I looked at your bio and stuff. I was over on your website and I checked out some stuff. You and I had a chance to talk off camera. I mean, your website is very detailed. I mean, you put a lot of work and your team put a lot of work into that site. It's very informative for people that are looking to get educated on who they're voting for.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I get into the website, if I could just say, David, here in your list of what you've done, thank you both. I got to tell you, without you guys doing what you do, it makes our community so much safer. And I was a naval veteran, so it was during peacetime. But you guys, every day, you were getting up, you were doing something that was possibly dangerous. So thank you for that.
We appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. I did 30. David did, 22, David?
22.
22. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. So my website, if I want to get that out first, it's sadwickforcongress.com. So it's SADWICK, four spelled out, FOR, Congress.com.
Cool.
And it does have a lot of my positions laid out pretty specifically. Unlike Kamala Harris, who's kind of hiding her positions, and she's got a lot of hyperbole on it. I'm very specific about what I stand for.
Yeah, so it's pretty informative. I mean, when I went on it today and I pretended to take notes, so I did not give our producer, Danny Agnew, a heart attack. So I kind of semi-prepared. So I don't want you to be impressed. I just want you to know that I don't want him to fall over.
Cheater.
On the camera. I did kind of cheat a little bit tonight because I said, you know what? We got to make sure that we're prepared for Mr. Sadwick coming tonight, right? So we know that you have a commitment to transparency. What did you say off camera relative to your transparency and the middle of the road stuff?
So, and this is stuff that's a little softer. So, I mean, my website's very specific, but this is softer stuff about what I stand for. Okay, so I'm getting into politics. I really do believe, and I think this weekend actually exemplifies what I stand for. We have more in common with each other, whether Democrats, Republican, or independents, than we do with the extremists in either end of the party. Mm-hmm. And I truly do believe that. And we got to start toning down the rhetoric. Mm-hmm. And this weekend, seen another assassination attempt. And we just hear rhetoric being ratcheted up on both sides, but I'm going to suggest primarily by the progressive left, which I consider different than Democrats. Give me a Clinton Democrat, give me a Kennedy Democrat, and we'll drink beers all day long. It's when we get to the progressives that are just a little out of what traditional America is all about. That's not where we need to be. So it's middle America coming back together and liking each other, because we work together, we like each other. We play together, we like each other. Our families spend time together. Our politics should be the same.
Yeah, and speaking of the Democrats, I was interested when we were shooting a breeze when you first got here, who your campaign manager is.
Yeah, so I'll share that my campaign slogan is not left, not right, forward. And there's a great commercial with me and my campaign manager, who's a former Democrat city councilman, Jose Pio. So I'm living what I'm preaching. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not just a slogan, not left, not right, forward. And what that really means, though, not left, not right, forward, I'm a Republican with Republican values, okay? I believe in small government. I believe we should have a border. I believe in traditional family values. So I believe in most of those things that come with your traditional Republican. But we shouldn't be digging our heels in on the right, and we shouldn't be digging our heels in on the left. I'll give you an example. America, when it comes to the abortion discussion, the pro-abortion or pro-life discussion, everyone just digs their heels in. Mm-hmm. We need to find a place. Republicans are not going to drag the rest of the country across the finish line to pro-life. That's just not going to happen. So we need to meet Americans where they're at today. and we need to guide them to where we want them to be, but without beating them over the head. So it's working together, and we got to where we are, quite frankly, which I think is too far left, in small increments. It's okay. We're going to get America back to the middle in small increments. It's not going to be in one big tug.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at your website, I mean, you got to, it's outlined. I mean, you talk about accountability, affordability, foreign policy, immigration, and then if I flip over.
Isn't it nice when someone lays out exactly where they stand? It's readily available for everyone to look at. It's amazing how many people avoid actually taking a stand on anything.
Well, you know what's amazing is when Danny Agnew tells me to do show prep, and this is
and you got 14 blank sheets of paper in front of you?
Maybe 15. But what's amazing is I just laid out 4. I believe you got 6.
There's
correct?
6. There's 6.
Yeah. The last 2 are inflation, and you talked about the women's rights. So do you want to go over your policies and platform and lay them out each one by one for our audience?
Yeah. So the biggest thing right now is affordability. Okay. So affordability is one of my biggest stances. We've wrecked our economy with all the things we did during COVID, post-COVID, the current administration. You know, Kamala Harris, it's pretty funny. Kamala Harris was bragging about how Bidenomics is really working, and now she's running like heck to get away from it because it isn't working. We know it. We all knew it wasn't working, but they were lying to us. But she actually cast the 2 deciding votes on 2 huge pieces of legislation that dumped in $3.2 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay. We all know that when there's more money chasing fewer goods, prices go up, and that's where we are. It's unbelievable when you go to Wegmans today or wherever you shop. It's just, and the part I don't understand is people that want to vote for Kamala Harris because they hate Donald Trump know that, they live that, but the vitriol towards Donald Trump is so strong that they're not going to.
Right. Well, they focus on the individual, not on the policies.
Exactly.
And that's the problem I have with a lot of politics is I don't really care about the person as much as I do the policies. I mean, I take into consideration the person, but the most important thing is the policies in which they stand for. So I'm voting for a policy stand, not for an individual.
And I would agree with that because I'm out in public quite a bit, and I get that question quite often. Well, you're going to vote for Donald Trump? Well, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump's policies.
Exactly.
Okay, because we were better off 4 years ago. And people argue with me on this. No, we're not, blah, blah, blah. Really? I mean, we didn't have 2 new wars that we have today in Israel and in Ukraine. We didn't have those. And if Donald Trump was president these last 4 years, I'm pretty confident in saying we wouldn't have had those. He kept the embargoes on Iran, the sanctions on Iran. So Iran was pumping 300,000 barrels of oil a day. And when he left office and Biden took off the sanctions, they're now pumping 3 million a day. Okay, that made them much wealthier, and that gave them the money to, attack, or to have their proxies attack Israel and us. It's astounding that they attack us, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, it's amazing what they use that money to fund their illegal activity with, if you will. So relative to, you talk about Trump and you talk about other things. It's amazing how, Kamala, like we were talking about, she doesn't have any real policies that she's standing by, to be honest with you. I mean, she comes out and she talks, it's just all gibberish. But like I was saying, going back to your website, I mean, you talk about the border, you talk about things that are affecting people. Yeah.
So, I mean, the border, we saw this even here in Rochester. We saw this, 2 weeks ago with the murders in Irondequoit?
Yep.
I mean, it sounds cliche to say every state is a border state, but we are.
Yeah.
And when that became real a couple of weeks ago with what happened in Irondequoit, with an illegal immigrant doing what he did, 4 lives were lost. And what's ironic about it, ironic's probably the wrong word, but there's a lot of powerful Democrats that live in Irondequoit and are from Irondequoit, including my opponent, and including our county executive. And they've been very quiet about this. Mm-hmm. They should be the ones that are thumping their chests the loudest that this needs to stop.
Well, you haven't even heard from either of them that I know of, other than the token, we feel sorry for the family, but no one's even addressed the fact that the suspect was here illegally.
Right, and we're not going to, because they know what they're doing, which is the shocking part. I mean, you don't just let 10 or 20 million people come across the border and not think it's going to have an impact on everyday lives of Americans, whether it's crime, whether it's overflowing our health system, our schools.
Terrorist attack.
We're not, okay, well, let's go there. We got Chinese adult men coming across. 150 different nations are represented by the people coming across. We got fentanyl coming across, which is taking over 100,000 souls a year. The child trafficking. Remember when Chuck Schumer was in tears because Donald Trump was putting children in cages that Obama built?
Yeah.
I don't even remember those. And same with AOC. What about these? We've lost 300,000 children. We've lost them in our system. Yeah. Where's the tears now? That's a heck of a lot worse than kids being put in cages. But it's all political. And that's the disgusting thing about what's going on in our country right now. And that's where Americans, everyday American, I consider myself an everyday American. I have 2 businesses. Yeah. I just slog it out every day like everyone else in Rochester and Monroe County. I'm not a career politician. Career politicians have lost sight of what's going on in this country. And Americans have got to start to take America back.
Yeah. Well, the problem is I really feel that it's just a bunch of talk. It's a bunch of gibberish on one side. We see, which full disclosure, I mentioned this on a couple of our we call them quick takes when we do a 10 or 15 minute bit on our podcast on our website. And, but we have you coming on as a candidate. We spoke to other candidates, Republican candidates in the past, and you guys, the candidates, are the ones talking about. I even take issue with some of the Republicans locally, to be honest with you, because some of the local Republicans even haven't even come out and take stances. I feel like you guys as candidates have done a great job in really getting your message out there and putting a game plan together where you're not just talking, you're saying, this is what I stand for and this is how I plan on executing it.
Yeah, and when it comes to crime, I mean, Jim Van Brederode is an incredible candidate. He's running for state Senate and former police chief. And Jim takes the lead on a lot of those things to help us candidates get along, not get along, but to help guide us with crime policy. But Jim's phenomenal, and he needs to get to Albany. Albany needs him. This district needs him. Mm-hmm. But we've had it's kind of sad. We'll have press conferences, and we'll put out the press releases, and very few news agencies come.
Yeah,
it's kind of disappointing.
Well, the news agencies all are in line with the Democratic Party. I mean, it's just like mainstream. Just like you saw the debate on ABC. Like a wise man said that the media is not our friend anymore. Like you're not going to get that middle of the road take that you get on this show from any of the mainstream news channels. It's just slanted. They're basically working for either the Democratic Party or the swamp. I mean, basically.
Yeah, and when media is in alignment with the government, that should be a concern.
That's terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying.
And it's just like when the government is trying to suppress information like they did during COVID, that should concern all of us. So there's a lot of concerns out there.
Oh, you mean how the president, one of our former presidents, almost gets assassinated and it's out of the news cycle 3 days later? It's crazy. I mean, we're on the same page. We have the same philosophies that you have because we think that at the end of the day, I mean, the ship needs to be righted. It needs to be put back on course.
Absolutely, because I don't think it's not sustainable. I mean, we're racking up $1 trillion of debt every 3 to 4 months. In 1980, the national debt was 25% of GDP. Today, it's over 100% and growing. That's just not sustainable. It's kind of insane. So our budget is about $8 trillion. Our revenue is about $5 trillion. We're borrowing $3 trillion. We're borrowing it from China to give to other countries.
Yeah.
And a third of that, the difference there, the $3 trillion, a third of that goes to just pay off the service on our national debt.
Right. Well, America's going broke.
Right.
If people can't do that math, that means America's going broke.
Yeah.
And for
or they are broke.
I mean, Social Security, in 10 years, Social Security benefit, it's a math problem. That's what people understand. It's pure math, and you can't cheat math. In 10 years, Social Security benefits it's projected they'll have to be reduced. Seniors should be up in arms because we are giving $400 to $500 billion to this illegal alien crisis. That can go to seniors. That can go to education. The education in our city is just, it's deplorable.
You couple that with what we're sending to Ukraine to fight a proxy war, and we're throwing money, we're throwing money out the window. It's like,
we're leaving student debt so we can buy votes.
Right. You can't spend, just like in an American household. You can't spend, and expect to, be above board.
I have 2 businesses. I can't do that there either.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I think our
right. You can't make 1,000 and spend 1,500.
Exactly. You could do it once, but it's not going to be sustainable.
Well, Gregg, we had a spirited conversation that we know we're going to take on the other side of the break. Thanks for coming in tonight. Folks, stick with us on the other side. We got Gregg Sadwick. Folks, thanks for sticking with us. Our guest tonight, Gregg Sadwick. He's running for New York's 25th Congressional District he's going against incumbent Democrat Joe Morelle. Gregg, thanks for not running out on us and sticking with us. We appreciate it, brother.
You guys have been pretty friendly so far. Thank you.
So far.
So, on the break, we were talking a little bit about, you had your businesses, perfectly content with, your companies that you own. What made you jump into the political arena?
So I started seeing where things were going, and I was just like pretty much everybody, I'm getting frustrated. So 2 years ago, I got involved with Laurent Singletary's campaign, and I thought Laurent was fabulous, and I'm just shocked that he's not our congressman right now.
Yeah, us too.
But being a part of Laurent's campaign team kind of pulled me into the fold. And two more years go by, and now here we are. And the Republican Party needed someone, and I'm a Republican, but I haven't been an active party member. As I said, I'm Republican by values, but they needed someone to run. And I wish I could say I was, the best of 10 candidates, but I was the only one that picked up the baton. Okay. And I picked it up because, I have a granddaughter was born about 2 months ago. Okay. So I'm now a grandfather. And I think about my grandfather. He fought in World War II. And the America that he handed to me is not the same one I'm going to hand to my granddaughter. And I think that's tragic because America was and still can be an incredible place. But we got to get back to basics and get back to the fundamentals that made us what we were. And that's why I'm also in a place in life where I was able to get involved. Okay, it's not an inexpensive experience to get involved in campaigning. It's actually pretty disgusting how much money is involved with campaigning. But I was at a place where I could get involved. Time-wise, my 2 companies, the management team in one is taking care of business. My son runs the other one. So the timing was just perfect. I'm a news junkie, so I've been following what's been going on and just it boiled over. And that's why I got involved.
Well, kudos to you because, it's amazing that, you talk about having the initiative when you don't even need to. When you don't need to run, you have 2 successful businesses with you employ close to 100 people or over 100 people, and you have a comfortable life. And now all of a sudden you get into it. And I think that's a huge, huge thing for people to understand because when you have a certain level of comfort in your life, nobody wants discomfort. And to jump into the political arena because you felt it was the right thing to do, I think that speaks leaps and bounds about what kind of candidate and what kind of character you are. Because lately, ever since, the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, the candidates that are coming out, especially on the Democratic side, don't come out for those reasons.
Yeah, they come up what I call through the political farm system. Mm-hmm. So they're all part of my opponent's developmental tree, and they all come up each rung of the ladder, and they get their positions that way because the money that's involved in politics that the incumbents are able to generate is a pretty big hill to climb for any challenger. But I do believe that that's part of the problem, and that's when I'm getting involved. Term limits. It just seems it's astounding to me that they call for term limits on the Supreme Court, but they don't see they should have term limits too.
Well, it's amazing to me that everyone that goes into the federal political scene goes in with no wealth and leaves very wealthy.
How's that happen? Statistically, that makes no sense. But I agree with you. It's
well, the Pelosi's beat the market every year. They're the greatest investors that ever lived.
And AOC,
they've never taken a loss.
AOC, she was a bartender, so she wasn't. I'm assuming she wasn't accumulating much wealth there. Now she's been in Congress 2 terms, maybe 2.5 terms, and she's already a millionaire. It's like, how does that happen?
Well, the only president we've ever seen in my lifetime that left office with less of a net worth than when he arrived was Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone else went in with no money and left being worth hundreds of millions of dollars, whether it be, Joe Biden or Obama or Clinton. I mean, it's amazing how much wealth you can accumulate just working for the government.
Yeah, and that's got to stop, because it's I don't want to say it's cabal, because that sounds too negative, but at least that gives you a visualization of what's going on there. It's kind of like a cabal. They're all, and I'm a different candidate because I've come from outside the system. So not that I want to, go against my party, but I have the ability to go against my party because, one, I'm not from that system. 2 is Monroe County will never get federal dollars for a Republican candidate in Monroe County. We're not going to get state dollars for a federal candidate in Monroe County. So what I do is up to the people of this county. So when I go to Washington, I'm not accountable to donors. I'm not accountable to the party. I'm accountable to the people who put me there. And that's how it should be. I mean, we don't have 435 at-large representatives where, money coming from all over the country should decide who's going to represent us.
Yeah.
We have a representative democracy where the money should come from this district to decide who's going to represent this district. And that's not what we have today.
Yeah.
Because the people who write the rules write it in their favor.
Well, speaking of money, it's what I love to see too, and it's disgusting. And your candidate, your opponent, I mean, your opponent did this a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing during election time how the clown big checks come out,
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing, speaking of money, how all of a sudden people are in front of the camera with the 4 to 5 foot fake check going, hey, look what we did. I think, which, by the way, it's kudos, because I know it was for the Boys and Girls Club, but that's why they do it. They do it so you don't bash their activity. They're like, you can't, I'm not bashing the Boys and Girls Club for getting federal funds. I'm just saying, wow, how ironic. A couple of months before an election, you're coming in, because I'll be honest with you, I don't see Joe Morelli ever. I remember him kneeling and sitting down during 2020 and going against the cops. That I do remember. But I love how it's amazing.
God, that annoyed me.
Yeah.
If I can interrupt
I'll
you
never
too.
kneel ever. Like, I don't even.
By the way, I just went off on a
You couldn't
tip.
pay me $1 million to take a knee like that. There's no amount of money I would ever get on my knees for anything.
Yeah.
As a naval veteran, you guys will never, ever see me kneel or sit against our brave men and women in blue. Never.
Well, I have 2 rules. I'll never get in the trunk of a car.
That's a good rule.
And I'll never take a knee. I never kneel. You'll never get me in the trunk of a car. There'll be shots fired. You'll never get me in the trunk of a car. But I'll never take a knee either. Or say Indian
if I ever
style.
get that Trivial Pursuit question, where will David not go? I'm definitely going to
never find me in a trunk. I promise you that. I'll be dead on the street, but I won't be in the trunk.
Yeah, it's amazing though this time of year, right, Greg? I mean, you see everyone coming out with the big checks and getting in front of the camera a lot, huh?
Yeah, and the funny thing about those checks, okay, so you only get one side of the equation. So let's say the representative brings back, $1. Keep the math simple, $1.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good or bad? There's 435 congressmen. If there were $435 to be given out and he brought back one of them, that's great. He got his share. But how do we know there weren't $870 to be given out and he only brought back half of what his average should have been?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that. So we fall for this game every time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the disappointing part.
It is disappointing. It's disappointing too, and because I think that relative to who people are voting for, I think that it's so important that people do their research on the candidates. It's really important that who you vote for today in America at every level. I think that this is, in my generation, I think that every level of government politics, voting, I know it's always been important, so I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that I feel like today in 2024, it's more important than ever to vote in every election at every level of government.
And to know who you're voting for.
Correct.
Absolutely. Because you'd be surprised at what some of the candidates you think you're voting for actually vote for in the legislature. But people vote because they got an R or D next to them, and that's where they go. That's got to stop. And the funny part is
that drives me insane. And then you have those same people that complain about the crime problem, and they complain and they bitch about whether taxes go up or the crime. And you're like, oh, well, and then you find out, well, they voted Democrat for the last 10 years. And it's like, then shut up. Yeah. You don't get to complain. If you're voting for that guy and he's telling you he's going to raise taxes, he wants to defund the police, he wants to do all these things, you then can't complain. So if you want to have, a voice and you want to turn around the Titanic, so to speak, in the direction it's going, you then have to vote for policy, not party.
Absolutely. And the ironic part about that is a lot of people just vote down the party line.
Yeah.
But then we get pissed off when our politicians do the exact same thing in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
They vote down party line. Well, where'd they get that habit from? It's from us.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, David's a good setup guy, right? I call it T-ball. He always puts the ball on the tee for me, because sometimes he's got to jog I got a 520 on my SAT, so don't judge me, Greg. But at the end of the day, what we have.
For English or math?
Yeah.
No, total. That's a total.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Listen, I'm the smart guy in the room with a 950. I got a 950 and he thinks I'm a genius.
Yeah. Well, you're a genius because you set me up very well. So David mentioned some things that I want to talk about, our target audience. We are the Crime Dawg Podcast. So, what I want to know your stance on things like, bail reform, cashless bail, the whole raise the age, pick one, all these reforms that the Democrats push through during the cover of darkness in a budget many years ago in 2020. And now all of a sudden, we always say, look out the window, right, David? Look out the window. Everyone's like, no, it's okay. Everything's great. Well, we say, look out the window. It's not okay. So pick one of those, whether it's cashless bail, raise the age, any of the criminal justice reforms that we got jammed down our throat, like I said, during a cover of darkness budget.
No consulting law enforcement whatsoever.
Yeah. So as a representative, I'm going to be representing people. So I'm going to share with you what I hear on the streets. Okay, because one of the places I've been going is into the city. And what I'm finding in the city are some amazing people who are just pissed off because their streets are not safe. Okay, so we'll use raise the age, for example. Okay, they're disgusted that the youth are not, there's no consequences for what the youth are doing right now. And they're afraid their kids are going to fall into that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, I was at an event this weekend at the Willie Lowenguth Rec Center. I saw these amazing kids. They're K through 6. Great. They're so pleasantly mannered. I thought to myself, how tragic is this that these poor kids are going to be subjected to the city school system, which is failing and is going to fail them. And they're going to possibly be on the cycle where they're going to fall into situations where there's no consequences. And they're just going to be on this path to somewhere that's not good. We need to have consequences at a younger age so that people aren't getting involved in stuff at an older age.
Right. Well, you talked about that, the raise the age, the whole issue coupled with cross-pollination with the cashless bail.
That was impressive right there.
What's that?
Cross-pollination. That was
good.
That was pretty good.
That's no 520 guy.
Yeah. Danny, flag the tape.
That's no 520 guy.
That's right.
So anyways, see, he tries to distract me, but I'm on.
It was good. I just wanted to.
I'm on my game. Thank you. Was that a compliment?
Yeah.
I'm on my game though.
I'm calling Mrs.
I'm on my game.
I'm calling Mrs. FIORICA.
I brought a different game when I got a high level potential politician coming in, not political person. Sorry, but anyway. So here's the deal. So we have cross-pollination when you talk about youth, right? Talk about raise the age, the Kia Boys, stolen cars, cashless bail. Now you got these kids running around wreaking havoc in the city. The area, David and I worked that area. We worked that area in Genesee section. We talked about it off camera over on Champlain Street, Genesee, Jefferson Avenue. We worked those areas. And when you have kids stealing cars, running amok, running people over, doing crimes with those cars, driving them into buildings, trying to steal ATMs, you name it, drive-by shootings. And then all of a sudden you couple that, cross-pollination, with cashless bail. Now you wind up with mayhem in a society.
I think we've kind of seen that. Exactly. Yeah. That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
And
they need to see the stats though.
Well, the stats aren't real.
I know. That's the joke.
They're lying about the stats. But the funny part about that is
you don't need stats when you're stepping over bodies every time you walk in the streets.
We tried something. Okay, they tried something. They tried it.
Right.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. They tried something. But they should be good public servants. Say, you know what, this is not working, and we need to freaking pull that pendulum back because this is out of control.
It's ego. They should lose the ego.
Well, I'm going to say it's votes. Okay, they have their party line and they can't step out of the party line. And unless the whole party does it, they're not going to see one or two people do it. And that's the unfortunate part, because who pays the price? People in the city. And people in suburbs. I mean, it's going out to the suburbs too.
Yeah.
It's not, and it was funny because when it's contained in the city, people in the suburbs don't really have much interest in it. But now that it's coming out to the suburbs, now people are starting, hey, wait a minute. This is
it's interesting that you said that, because one of the things, and we had Rachel Barnhart on. By the way, Joe Morelli, more than welcome to come on, sit on our couch where Gregg's sitting. Any other politician that wants to come on our podcast, more than welcome to come on. Rachel came on, she sat on, she talked about cashless bail. We know where she stands. It's a polar opposite of us. We had a discussion. We even said exactly what you said, Gregg. We said, you know what? We get it. You tried it. It didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board. You know, we are rational people. We know, hey, maybe some of the
tweak it.
Yeah, tweak it.
Just
Maybe
tweak
some
it.
of the cashless bail stuff. Maybe you could have had that. You know, maybe meet us in the middle. But nobody wants to sit down and have a conversation.
We literally asked her. We said, "How do we get you to sit down with law enforcement, with Republicans, big round table, vet this out, come to an understanding, some common ground, and iron this out a little bit?" And she literally was like, I don't know.
I'll give you an example why it's not going to happen. Xi Jinping. When you're in a one-party system like China, you don't have to.
Yeah.
In Monroe County is a one-party
Very
system
good
right
point.
now. And that's the unfortunate part of where we're at.
It's a very good point.
Wow.
Gregg, we can't thank you enough for coming on, my friend. We wish you the best of luck in the election.
Well, thank you.
Again, it's Gregg Sadwick, the Republican nominee for New York's 25th district. We wish you luck. Thank you for coming on. And like we talked about, I know we joked a little bit with Gregg during this lighthearted discussion. He has a lot of, why don't you give your website once again?
Yeah, it's Sadwick for Congress with 4 spelled out, and Sadwick's SADWICK.
Folks, go to Sadwick for Congress. Again, he's running for New York's 25th Congressional District. Gregg Sadwick, thanks for coming on the pod, my friend.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Folks,
viewers.
thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you saw here, click like and subscribe at our YouTube channel, which is at Crime Dawg Podcast. You can also go to our website, thecrimedawgpodcast.com, where you could click on a library of our episodes. Again, thanks for listening to this episode. We hope you visit us for future episodes. But like my brother-in-law, Frankie Grassi, says, if you can't make it, who cares?